Thank you, Amy, and thank you, BioUtah, for inviting us for this university session of the summit today. As a new associate dean, it's been a thrill to get to know the leadership, both Kelvin and Amy, and to work with them to improve BYU's collaboration and communication with the biotech community across the state. I was thrilled this morning, actually, to see a former faculty member of BYU, Dan Simmons, receive the Lifetime Achievement Award. My interactions with Dan were few and far between, but when I did interact with him, it was always uplifting, and I was always thrilled to be encouraged and just cheered on by Dan. And this is true of what he said in his brief remarks this morning, that really we as a life science community have the chance to improve the lives of humankind. And that really speaks back to what's happening at BYU and the culture of BYU. Just briefly, a few snippets from the mission statements and aims of BYU listed here. BYU's mission: students who graduate from BYU should be capable of competing with the best in their fields. Scholarly research and creative endeavors among both faculty and students are essential and will be encouraged. And finally, we believe that the earnest pursuit of this institutional mission will greatly enlarge Brigham Young University's influence in a world we wish to improve. This is what really drives a lot of what we do at BYU and creates unique opportunities for commercialization of technology that's developed among our faculty and students. Today, Dave Brown from our Tech Transfer Office is going to introduce some of their efforts in supporting the aims of BYU in this regard. And then a faculty member in cell biology and physiology, Tim Jenkins, will talk about some specific examples of our bioinnovation program and some startup companies and outcomes of that program. Dave?
Great, thanks, Mike. And it's great to have an administration that supports what we're doing in tech transfer at BYU, as well as to have a university that's incredibly entrepreneurial. Tech transfer at its best is aimed at getting technologies not just into journals, but all the way into the marketplace where they can improve people's lives, and that's what we're trying to do. As Mike noted, we also feel like we have a mission at BYU to help students have great experiences that will set them up to go forward into life and succeed and contribute to the world. At Tech Transfer, we try to treat students as customers, create a good student experience for them so that they can commercialize easily, and there are a few things we do to make that happen. One is we try to serve students by having a flexible deal structure. Students tell us that they're worried if they license a technology that they won't be able to pay licensing fees or raise the money they need to start a company, and so we make it so they don't need to do that. We typically take an equity position and a royalty or some other non-cash component of a deal so that they can launch their company without worrying about cash up front. We believe in serving the public with our commercialization efforts, and we want the students to know that and feel a sense of mission behind it. And then as a university, we're focused on helping the students launch companies and do the things that they're aiming to do. There are a couple case studies on this sheet that kind of illustrate successes we've had with student startups. One of them is Smart Vision Works, and this is an agricultural company. It's focused on sorting agricultural products. So if you've had a potato anytime recently, I assume you have, it was probably sorted by them. This is a machine AI technology from about 10 years ago, and it provides the computer vision on assembly lines, on sorting lines in agricultural plants. So potatoes will go flying through there, and it will sort them by size and grade. It does other things too for meat products, for beef. It will look for foreign objects. So if you've had ground beef recently and it did not contain pieces of plastic, that's thanks to them too. And so it's an amazing technology. What's notable about Smart Vision Works for me is that when we first kind of publicized this technology a decade ago, we had a lot of interest from major companies. We had companies that came and wanted to acquire it or use it in their operations. But our inventor, DJ Lee, who was from engineering actually, he said, no, I'd really rather do a startup company with my grad students. I feel like grad students make the best entrepreneurs. And his two grad students ended up getting the license from us and launching this company, Smart Vision Works. For a few years, they expanded and created their business, and then we connected them with one of our BYU MBAs who provides some business expertise, and they were able to scale up, and then they launched this last March. So that was a very challenging technology, but a student focus really paid off for us there, and the company did great. Another one I have on there is Gradually. If that sounds a little bit familiar, it might be because they were on KSL News a couple weeks ago. In this situation, we had a student who was actually working in my office in tech transfer, Levi Wilson. He was very entrepreneurial. He came to work for us so that he could look at our technologies and find something to take out into the market. And he found this student loan technology and wanted to proceed with it. Once again, we had interest from other companies that wanted to license the technology, and we ended up doing a deal with another company where we licensed to them on the condition that they made Levi the CEO of the new entity. So they did that, and he's off and running with the startup company. So I think a key to launching student startups is to have confidence in your students and be willing to put the technologies in their hands. Not every technology is going to be right for a student startup, but when you have a technology that is, you need to give them the reins, let them take that forward. As I know, startup-friendly deal terms are a key to doing student startups at BYU, but so are student-driven ideas. And Tim will talk about his lab in a second here, but in many cases, we have students who are part of the inventing. In the Smart Vision Works case, those were grad students who actually worked on the technology and became technical founders of the company. They knew the technology inside and out and were enthusiastic about it. Many of our students at BYU, including grad students, are actually very entrepreneurial and want to launch companies. And finally, an entrepreneurial environment. Sometimes people will say, well, why doesn't BYU have an incubator? Why don't you create some space and some resources for students who want to start companies? And I always take the perspective that BYU is one of the largest incubators you'll ever find. We have the Rollins Center for Entrepreneurship, which does a great job of hooking up students with funding opportunities and other resources. They have a Sandbox program, which is a year-long program for students to pursue a course of study that revolves around launching a company. Tim might talk about his class that does the same sort of thing in life sciences, giving students opportunities to set up companies. And we have many students who take advantage of these resources. We also have world-class technologies and technology. The statistic I always like to share with people is that you've heard that the failure rate for startup companies is 90%. For biomedical companies that come out of tech transfer, the failure rate is 60%. Which means you have 4 times the odds of succeeding if you have a technology from tech transfer. And that's because these are real technologies that are coming from world-class innovators, and they've been protected, patented, and so forth competently, hopefully, by the tech transfer office. And so a final point, there are more stories on our YouTube channel and elsewhere, but a final point is the reason we can launch student startup companies is because we have a steady flow of great technologies. At BYU, we have amazing professors who could be at any university, but out of a sense of mission and for other reasons, they've come to BYU, and we're grateful for it. We have a great stream of technologies from them and very supportive administrators. So it's a pleasure to serve these faculty, and one of them is Tim Jenkins right here.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm excited to have the opportunity to just talk a little bit about exactly what we've been able to do because of the environment that Dave just talked about. I'll introduce you to a company that was recently started based on technology that's been produced at BYU. Myself and my then undergrad student, Chad Pollard, had made some discoveries in our lab that really facilitated the formation of this company called Renew. It was built through our bioinnovations program at BYU, and I'll just spend a little bit of time talking about really how this works. I'm not necessarily going to talk about all the nitty-gritty of the company itself, but kind of what we see as a vision and a case study for how we can move this sort of thing forward in partnerships with students, even undergrad students, and faculty members. So Renew was built on some pretty simple ideas. Myself, I have always been a researcher in the fertility field, but have focused mainly on epigenetics. I spent many years trying to develop a technology to help us identify the presence or absence of rare sperm in a sample for use in both forensics and fertility applications, and was fortunate when I first came to BYU to discover a way to do that. We use cell-free DNA, and we're looking at DNA methylation patterns that helps us to identify the cell of origin from any given piece of DNA. That enabled us to generate some cool technologies that we worked with some other companies to bring forward. That technology was recognized by my student Chad, who again was an undergraduate at the time in my lab, recognized a potential use for that technology, specifically in the field of neurodegeneration. Chad was interested in Alzheimer's disease, and so went out on his own and said, let's take this technology. If we can identify DNA that originated from sperm, we could also identify DNA that originated from neurons. And if you have lots of DNA that originated from neurons floating around in your blood, then you likely have neurodegeneration. So we built a handful of studies based on this idea and quickly found that his idea was spot on and that it works extremely well. Chad took that idea. He won Student Innovator of the Year at BYU. We found multiple interested parties through a class that I teach, a course series called BioInnovations. He would present this idea to our class just about taking technology and discoveries in the life sciences to market. And we had people from the outside world, including investors and others, coming and listening to these ideas. One of those investors, or a couple of those investors that came, were extremely interested in what Chad was presenting and ended up funding that project. We think we've now developed a university, business, faculty, and student-friendly approach to generating a business that's based on technology that was originated at a university. So this company, Renew, acts as a holding company now for lots of different technologies. So Renew's role in all of this is that Renew helps fund new projects that are focused on having students play an integral role, preferably a leadership role as CEO or otherwise, but also partnering with faculty, the gray hair that can help to bring this forward. The students offer incredible enthusiasm and just excitement about these projects and are really great at moving things forward. But Renew also now provides startups some services so that they have the legs to make things happen. In addition, we've realized as we started building this out that to make diagnostics approaches feasible, we need to have some sort of a lab attached to that. So we've built a lab that's in the process of getting CAP and CLIA accreditation, which includes, in addition to myself, another faculty member at BYU, Dr. Jonathan Hill, as well as some collaborators that we have at the University of Utah, Kai Aston and Ben Emery. At BYU, the beautiful thing about this relationship is that Renew is now funding 2 labs at BYU with overhead, with the intent that anything that is produced by those labs of interest to Renew can come in and pick up that technology. They can be assigned the technology to move it forward. The hope is that those deals are ones that are beneficial to all parties involved, but that are highly focused on student success and student exposure to the world of biotech. The current status is that Renew has now picked up 5 patents from BYU. They're in the process of finishing a Series A raise at a valuation of about $120 million. It has both clinical and research functionality, so a lot of the technology that's been developed is useful for both researchers to kind of replicate some of what's being done, as well as clinical tests. We're also now partnering with Oxford Nanopore as a certified provider. And all of this has been built, and it's already proving out that this has only been going on for a year and a half or so, and it's already proving out to benefit a lot of our students. So Ryan Barney, who just defended his dissertation last week, so we'll call him Dr. Barney, he is now the lab manager at Wasatch Biolabs, which is the lab that was structured under Renew. And Kelly Stalker, who's about to get her bachelor's degree in December, it was able to start a company under this same umbrella, with the intent of having her run this company in the future and really move things forward. So we believe that we've kind of come up with a way with extremely supportive leadership and an extremely supportive technology transfer office for us to come up with ways to get students involved and to get faculty involved together to move forward biotechnology at BYU. So thank you so much for your time.